All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Today is the 24th of March, and I'm calling to order the Open Space Committee. Um, so tonight, we have some guests from Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, and we're going to go over um, our plan and look at their feedback they have for us, and then we're going to cover a bunch of other things, specifically maybe the action plan, and we have some other items on the agenda that help inform us write the plan. But before we begin, we have to ask for any citizen queries, seeing how there's none here. Um, we'll move on to the Open Space Committee meeting minutes. Has everybody had an opportunity to skim those meeting minutes, and do they have any comments or improvements or changes? Okay,
No,
hearing
I would
none.
move to approve the minutes as written.
Second. Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
I
Aye.
It's unanimous. Excellent. All right. So, tonight, Sophie, thank you for joining us. Maybe just quick go around the screen so you kind of know who we all are, as members on the committee. But I would definitely say thank you for, providing input and the work that you've done already on our plan and agreeing to come and speak with us tonight. So I'll start. Again, my name is Bill Hoffman, even though it says Christina on my screen. Um, and I live down near Old Town, down on the Parker River, and I'm the chair of the committee. We've been here about for 10 years, and we've been on the committee now, I think since it started. So been almost 2 years now. So on my screen next, I see Sean.
Hi, Sean McElroy. Uh, I'm a member of this committee and the Borders to Boston Trail Committee as well.
All right, Christina.
Sure. Hi, Kay. Hi, Sadie. Sophie. Nice to see you all. Yeah, Bill and I are related. And so we've been on this committee for a couple of years. I think that the committee's been around for a really long time, but it got refreshed in the last couple of years in order to put this plan together. So, yeah, happy to contribute as much as we can. And maybe I'll hand it over to Jim.
Hello, Jim Dooling. I've been in town for over 25 years. And like Sean, I am also on the Border to Boston committee.
Mike.
Mike Carboni. I live over on Scotland Road. I've been a part of the Open Space Committee for a long time. I was part of it when we did the last plan update in 2008, 9, 10.
Excellent. And Kay, I just saw you on my screen, so I didn't mean to leave you out, but you are certainly a part of this. And again, thank you for all your support and the comments you made on the plan. I'm assuming we don't need to introduce Sadie because everybody
You
knows
know
Sadie here,
me
right?
already.
Yep. So I think Sadie, what do you think? How do you want to jump in on this? Do you want to put up the plan and just start going from the top down through these comments? Um,
Could we also,
Working
Sure.
actually,
off
could
the
we get an
Merrimack Valley?
introduction from Kay and Sophie, just so that I don't think that I've had the chance to meet them?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Kay Emery. I'm an environmental planner at the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission. I typically handle OSRP reviews and planning for the environmental team. So, I've been involved in a handful of these plan updates, especially recently, it feels like. I provide kind of overviews on the narrative and help guide the process based on feedback that we've received and reviews of OSRPs with communities in the past. So I tend to lean a little more like narrative action plan side, and then Sophie tends to handle a lot of our data and maps. Sophie, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. I'm the GIS or one of the GIS analysts at MVPC, and I've done the mapping for a few open space plans now, so it's nice to actually meet with you guys because I've never met with the open space committee before. And yeah, I work on a variety of different things like parcel updates and stuff like that. So yeah.
And Sophie created our maps a while ago now, but the majority of the maps that we have already for the plan were from Sophie. So
Yeah.
thank you, Sophie.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Kind of to the note about maps, in the draft that I sent back with comments, we did make a couple updates to the map. We have those in kind of like presentation format if you guys would like to review those changes together. Some of them we made based on feedback we've received on maps in the past, and I know Sophie, I think, has a couple questions for the group. So if that feels like a good place to start, maybe we can review the maps first and then go over the comments. Does that sound like a good plan?
sounds good to me. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm
So
going to go ahead and share my screen then. All right. Can everyone see that?
Yes, I can.
Awesome. All right. Technology is not really my forte, which is why we lean on Sophie here for maps and updates. So I already kind of mentioned this, but I just wanted to again reiterate, I do kind of more of the narrative comment, action plan development side of things. Sophie and our GIS team really handle a lot of like data requests for us and mapping requests. Um, in your kind of comments to us when you knew that we were going to review the plan, there were a couple direct asks. One of them was to make kind of a soil table breakdown of the different types of soil in Newbury. So Sophie did a really great job of kind of looking at that, seeing where there were just like very minuscule amounts that could be kind of combined into a broader kind of category. So this is the table that she created. This is in all these map updates, and this table are all formatted into the draft that we sent back to you all. But just wanted to let you guys know that that's in there, put it up here for you to review quickly. But this isn't really one that we have questions on, I believe, Sophie, unless anyone has any questions about the table for us.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm the one who asked for this table, so yeah, it looks, it looks good to me. Drainage type, soil classification, percent, soil description. I figured these aren't going to really change over time, so I thought if we just memorialize it here and kind of keep it at a higher level. The drainage type of mix was, I guess, kind of interesting to me. So to give me a little bit of description there, Sophie.
Yeah, so I was hoping that wouldn't happen, but when I sorted out the data, there were certain certain areas that were poorly drained, that were loamy sand, and then there were also certain ones that were loamy sand that were well drained, if that makes sense. Sorry. Um, but so it's just that you would think that all the different soil types would be one or the other, but there were certain parts that were both. So that's why I did the mixed category.
So interesting. Okay, so you're saying that there's some loamy sand areas that if you go to like the soil survey, it says that the drainage type is poorly drained, even though it's a loamy sand or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Um,
I could try to break down like I could add more column or more rows and then have it like the percent that's poorly drained of loamy sand and then the percent that's well drained of loamy sand.
yeah. Let me I will the soil table. Yeah, it's boy, we have a complex mix. I looked at some of the other, I didn't just come up with this, I sort of looked at some of the other OSRP uh documents that were available, and they have obviously a less complicated geographically complicated, less complicated geography going on here in soils, I would say, because it was relatively simple. So maybe we could refine it even more, or you know what, maybe this is completely fine because I don't know that this is really driving a lot of our action items. Like it's not necessarily driving the open space conversation. It's more of existing conditions. And so maybe we just leave it. And if the state doesn't like it, then they'll ask us to do something.
That would be my recommendation there. I think, this is just kind of a general view of like, what does the geography look like in Newberry? And the reality is that some of your loamy sand drains well and some of it doesn't. And like you said, I don't think it really informs much of the action plan, but it does just help capture like a broad image of the soils that provide in so much as they kind of can attribute themselves to being agricultural land.
The only piece that I would maybe be a little bit interested in, and Sophie, maybe you have the data to do this, is that the poorly drained soils do impact where residential can happen in some places in Newberry because of the need to have septic systems because we don't necessarily have town sewer. And so as long as we have, or maybe we could just don't even put the percent in that sentence, the previous sentence that's above this table, which you can't see, but I have the document opened. Maybe I'll just reword that and I'll just say like there's quite a bit of poorly drained soils because I thought we could actually get a fine point on that and say there are this percent of the town is by poorly drained soils. But I think that if we put that number in, it will confuse the soil table because you won't be able to add that number up by the rows of the soil table because there'll be some poorly drained that are in the mixed, and that's some pretty big percentages in there. So maybe I'll just rewrite that sentence.
Mhm. Yeah, and I will say too that, this is reflected, correct me if I'm wrong, Sophie, but this is also reflected in the soils map. So you can also kind of look to see where those types of soils are on that map as well.
Yeah, it has the poorly drained versus well drained, but it doesn't have the classification just because there's so much else going on in the map.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, so let's just leave that for now. I'll kind of mull it over. If I have any questions or thoughts or bright ideas, I'll let you know.
Sounds great. All right, we're gonna move then into a couple of the map updates. Or, oh, nope, I'm wrong. Sophie, this is all you too. One of the direct asks in the draft was also to kind of like look at land use change. So Sophie kind of went through the data and found a couple options. Sophie, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you. This is probably my biggest question for you all. Just looking at what kind of data we have to do a calculation of the land change over time. So the furthest back of parcel data that we have, that's like our local parcel data that I could use was 2013. So we could do when that's like based off of the assessed value, or not the assessed value, the assessed use codes. So I just pulled all the codes starting with a 7 and calculated it that way between 2013 and 2026. And that's what you see in the upper right. And that was like about 105 acres difference. But then the bottom one, that is from the state. And I know a different community used this data set for their open space plan. But unfortunately, it only is from 1971 to 1999. But it does show like a larger difference. So I was just hoping to kind of get your opinion on what you'd like to see or use for that.
I think
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say I think the past 10-ish years is probably the most relevant. I think most of the eastern side of Massachusetts underwent extreme rapid growth and development from the 70s to 2000. So I think that's probably known and expected, and maybe this 10-year snapshot might be the most relevant. Just my initial thought there.
Yeah, I agree. I kind of was leaning towards that as well. But I started to question, like, when I zoomed in, if you see like that large orange parcel that shows like a large area that was lost, when I zoomed into it, in our imagery, it kind of just looks like forest almost. And so I was like questioning, well, I don't know if the
Yeah.
assess codes are like very accurate compared to the other data set, but yeah.
Yeah, that to me, I caught that right away too, because I feel like that's part of Martin Burns, but it's hard to tell
Mm.
without, like an aerial behind it or something. Um, there is some ag land over there. I don't know if maybe it got calculated in the flip from, well, it would have been state owned in 2013. So, part
Mm.
of it was privately owned before the state bought, or a lot of it was privately owned before the state bought it up. So I don't know if that might have changed
Okay.
classification codes or something like that for that piece. But without like IDing the parcel, I couldn't say.
Okay. I could take a look at that.
I think the point of that sentence in the narrative is to talk about how important the agricultural landscape in Newbury is to the community. And the note there was that development has displaced active farmland rapidly in the town. And so, that could be over the last 50 years, 20 years. And so if we have a 13-year period that we can capture that, and it showed that we lost 105 acres. That actually doesn't seem that bad to me in my mind. But I can't remember how many acres we are total in the town, but maybe we could. It is interesting to show 1971. Like if you were to combine the two data sources in 1971, we had 1,800 acres, and in 2026, we have 726. We've lost over 1,000 acres, which feels much more impactful. Do you feel like it is like scientifically okay to merge those two data sets and grab the 71 number and the 2026 number? Or are you feeling like we need to keep them, we can't mix and match?
I was thinking something similar earlier, and I mean, I think it would be all right to combine it if for the purpose of this project. Like I know there's a lot of um talk about the land use change data sets in general because like you generally it's like very hard to compare them over time because every time they're like the state or something comes out with like a data set, like the last one was in 2016. You can't compare it to any other one because of the way they do it and like the imagery available and everything. It's like a different protocol. And so, like, if it were like like a land use change analysis, I would say probably not, but I think for this it would be sufficient.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
idea. I think as long as we cite the sources where that information came from, then I think that would cover it. And I do feel like it's more descriptive combining the two rather than separating them.
Yeah, I would say I feel like in in the pursuit of kind of giving a view of how Newbury has changed over the years, I think it's appropriate to kind of reference both and come out with, a better picture of what the community's experienced over a long period of time as well as a short period of time.
So if I
All right.
rephrased this sentence in the narrative and could you, or maybe you could just like give us the source, how we actually source the data from these two different data sets, and then we'll just source it.
Yeah, I can do that.
That would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay, great.
So,
Thank
just
you.
a question here, Sean. It's Sean speaking. Um, so we're thinking about combining these two maps.
We don't have a map in there. I was just showing the data.
Oh,
So it would
just the
just be the
data.
number. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay, okay. And the only other thing I would just to point out is there is a 14-year gap between the two, so that's a pretty big gap for there to be missing data, but
But
there's
it's
probably no way to fill it in, but just pointing it out.
Yeah, I do think if we just use like 1971 and then 2026, that's kind of a
Oh,
good way to capture it.
oh, I see.
yeah, because it's a cumulative loss. So even though we don't have that data point, you can see the end result.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, it actually makes more sense that way than if you're trying to combine the maps. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
All right. Any other thoughts on this one? Should we move on to the next map update?
That big parcel might be a conservation restriction on the edge of Martin Burns. If I'm like trying to,
Um,
I got like Mass Mapper open and I'm trying to line them up. So,
oh yeah.
so it might have just been a change of use that took it out of an ag designation, and flipped it into either just CR or, a different classification.
Hmm.
Yeah, we could probably look at the parcel data for that one, Sophie, and just note if it swapped to a conservation status rather than ag land.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we could put that qualifier in there because it is such a big parcel, it is such a big change. I feel like the sentence could read something like back in 1971, the state, blah, 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 whatever the source is, had classified the town as having approximately 879 acres of agricultural land. And then the most recent 2026 data, using the parcel data from XYZ, shows there are 832, reflecting a loss of approximately this many acres, whatever that math is. I haven't done it. Um, it should be noted that one large parcel, XYZ, actually hasn't been developed, but just changed classifications. And that's related to the Martin Burns. So anyway, we could at least put a qualifier
Yeah.
sentence in to cover that one data point that I think is worth it.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's a good idea. I'll send along the acreage of that parcel with the other data sources.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to move us along to a couple map updates, which Sophie, you're also going to walk us through these, I think.
Okay. Yeah. Um, these I didn't really have any questions, but I just wanted to show you that I added the farmlands of local importance because that was a separate data set that you have to request. And I added the farmlands to the soils map because I believe that's the requirement. It's kind of hard to tell from the screenshot, but when you zoom in, I have them all like in different patterns overlaid on the soil so that you can still see the soil type underneath. And Kay and I thought that it would be good to still keep a farmlands map separately, even though it's not required, just because you can break it down more and it's like a big part of the community, I think.
Also, just to have for your reference as you're kind of like thinking through aspects of the plan that might kind of refer to like maintaining the kind of like cultural feel of the town as well. You can refer back to kind of like that farmland soils map if you need to.
I like the addition of it in section 5 in your comments and updates to our draft.
Nice.
So I had noticed, and thank you for doing that. I know that that was one of my requests also to add in the farmland of local importance.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. It just says likely farmland of local importance and possible. So anyway, I got to get my head around who is making that designation and like what the qualifiers are around that, because we might need to add a sentence or two about that. So where did it come from?
Okay, yeah, so I can send that along too with the other data sources. Maybe Kate, she might be better at pointing this out, but it's a data set from what is it, the Department of Agriculture?
Yeah, this is like a USDA kind of it's a national data set that's typically used and like verified at the state level. So I think we did actually grab it from a Mass GIS layer for just Massachusetts. basically, it looks at kind of the makeup of the soils and whether or not they're conducive to like productive farming. And then it uses that soil breakdown to say, like, this is likely farmland of local importance based on the composition of the soil, like water availability, and whether or not it could produce like crop. And then using that kind of soil breakdown, you get like likely soils that they're pretty certain would be of local importance, and you get possible soils, which may or may not be possible of local importance, but are included so that you can verify at a local level. So it's really just kind of like how productive is the soil to agriculture. And above a certain threshold, it's likely, and below a certain threshold, it's possible. And then below that next threshold down, it's just not included in the data set at all.
All right.
Yeah, I found that wording to be interesting as well, but that's just how they had it. And so I didn't include the possible farmlands on the other map just since it's more like it's less confident. So I just put that on the farmlands only map.
Yeah, so maybe the legend item on the left-hand map, it says farmland of local importance. And I think we should be more specific because if it's likely, it doesn't mean that it is, and that legend item title just kind of makes it seems like it is, but it's really just likely.
Yeah.
So maybe we could just
Okay.
call it the likely farmland of local importance.
Yeah. Yeah, I can do that.
And then on the right-hand side, the farmland soils, that legend, it says all areas are prime farmland. Is that wording very specific, or could we say that
That
it's,
is the wording that the data came in, but I can't change that. It is kind of funny, yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Just to
I'll do some little research on that. So thanks for that.
Okay.
Interesting words.
Yeah, I will. I'll send the link over with the other data.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thank you. These look great.
I'm glad. This is
All
also
right.
just an
Yes,
update.
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead, Sophie. No, I was just queuing you up.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, this is also just an update. We broke down the municipal data into these four categories because that is what is required now in the open space plans. So, and then all the chapter lands are updated to this year because we just did the parcel update, so we have all the new use codes and everything. And for any of those chapter lands that weren't included in the state's open space layer, I added them in as privately owned because there's no other way really to know unless we go through every single one. I just put them all in as privately owned with limited protection since chapter lands are considered limited generally, but I did notice there are like a few parcels that were in the data set already that were protected in perpetuity. But I just think it's like it's kind of specific to each property. So if you notice anything when you're looking at the map, please just reach out if you see any errors with that sort of classification. And that's pretty much all I had on there.
Any questions, thoughts on this one? Does it all sound good to you all? And you, again, these maps are in the draft, so definitely feel free to take a closer look and reach out if you have more questions. Alrighty.
Okay. Yeah, and this is the last map update that we had, and it's just because I noticed there was a comment in there about adding boat, like I think it was about adding some dialogue about the boat ramps, but we thought that it would be good to actually add that to one of the maps as well. And our data for the boat access points in Newbury is pretty old, and so I wanted to just see if you guys could help verify the locations or if we're like missing any of them. And so that's what these stars are. So we just have three of them right now.
So the one to the north on Pine Island or Plum Island River, rather, just before it goes up onto Joppa Flats. I have not personally seen or used that one, although I do drive over that bridge all the time. I don't know if anybody else on the committee is familiar with that. It must be a canoe or a kayak launch site.
Is
That
it that spot under the bridge kind of? Is that what that data is referring to? Do people launch boats there? I've never launched a boat,
I
but
I mean, Mike, I have used that for kayaking a long time ago. I would say it's sparsely used. And it's a tricky put in. So, you know, I don't know if people would, for the most part, know that that is a place you could do it if you wanted to and didn't want to go to the Plum Island to the refuge
Yeah.
um, spot there, just below. We did talk, I think, briefly in the last meeting or two meetings ago about like off Route 1, there's um, a canoe put in, but you have to sort of carry your watercraft down to a fair way to even, I think, put it in. I don't know if you guys remember talking about that.
Yeah.
Kind of just north of the old Newbury Country Club. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we said, there's a sign there, but it's
Right.
not great. So do we want to put a star there at that Route 1 where it crosses, is that Parker River, or do we?
Yeah, we could do that. And then there's also the one on Middle Road, as you keep going up the river. So, those might be two that we um, also put in here as part of a broader discussion.
Yeah, the one on Middle Road, the parking is, oh, no, it's not a busy road, so it's okay, but it's not great.
Yeah, so it might be an example of we can mark it, but as, maybe, I don't know if it's a different color, but something,
Yeah.
or just even in the narrative, call it out as a possible area to do more with in the future.
Sophie, are you going to need kind of like coordinates for any points that you don't already note on this map?
I don't think so. If you said Middle Road, that's the only one I don't know where Middle Road is, but if I zoom in and it will just cross, or is that?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, okay.
we don't necessarily have to mark it even. I mean, it depends similar, based on what Bill just said about it's got very limited access. So,
I mean, I guess it begs the question of, do we want to note it because we want to include it in our action
right.
plan for the next 10 years, that we
That's,
want to actually do something there to make it more accessible to folks?
yeah.
And it's all salt marsh there. So I feel like that's a really tall ask
Yep.
to like create a parking area where there's just like the roadway and then salt marsh. I think that that's going to be a steep climb
Yeah.
to get anything approved. So I'm kind of torn about whether we show it or we don't show it. Even though it is boat access, is it like legitimate boat access? So maybe we only include what is maybe legitimate boat
Yep.
access. And I'm not sure which way that one goes, but it does seem a little, I mean, we've used it, but it doesn't mean it was right.
Right. Same here.
What do you
Yep.
guys think?
I think we can skip it and just include it in any narrative, but or not include it at all if we feel like it's an unlikely candidate in the future.
Yeah, I
Do
think,
you want? Oh,
yeah,
sorry, go ahead, Bill.
I was just gonna say, I agree. I think that we just don't do it because it's kind of an ad hoc type of boat ramp at this point. But if we ever did want to improve boat ramps, we could point to that as like, we have all this water but we only have, three access points. And then here's an example where people are trying to get to the water, but it's a poor site because of that or something. We could use that as almost like leverage. So I'd say leave it off, but if we need to make a point, we could use that as an example, I guess.
Does it feel appropriate here maybe to just have on the map marked locations for boat ramps that have kind of like available parking can handle kind of like more accessible boat launch rather than kind of having to carry in a craft to get it in the water. I'm seeing some nods.
I'm just thinking initially, like somebody picks this up and they look at it and they go out to a site that hasn't been improved, you know. Um, I like Christina's thought about using it somehow, in an action item or a goal for the committee and the town, because there isn't a lot of good water access points.
Yeah, I feel like we could use this map as a place where there currently are accessible locations with parking where you're not having to go to great lengths to get your boat in the water. And then we obviously know as a committee like where the other, sort of, under the radar places are that we could potentially put into an action item. So just because it's not marked on here doesn't mean we can't, use it or improve it later. If that makes sense.
With that in mind, do these look like these three that we have on here are those points that have parking that are accessible, or do you want us to take that northernmost one off that's just kind of like by the bridge?
There's actually parking there.
There is. Yeah.
Okay,
There's quite a bit, actually.
Yeah.
so these three sites look good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. All right. I think that is it for updates on maps. Okay. I think I stopped sharing my screen, but let me know if I didn't.
You're good.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, I think then, yeah, whatever you guys want to do, if you want to walk through the comments that I made, I'm certainly happy to speak to those.
I think that's a great idea. We could even share the document. I don't know if Sadie, if you have it handy, if you want to share it, or I could probably dig it up. I got it right here.
Okay. Do you want to go ahead and share, Bill, or do you? I'll make you co-host so you can do so.
Yeah. Okay. You guys got that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so okay, these are I saw mostly your comments on here. And then there's some stuff in here, and I'm not exactly sure who, maybe Sadie, you added the acknowledgements because I didn't see this prior.
Yes, I added just some of the title page acknowledgements, and then my sections that I've, worked to date, not, complete, but
Okay, great. Okay. And then I saw this highlight, but I didn't know if this was a comment. This is just a highlight saying we need to add more data. I don't know who put that
That,
in.
yeah, I mean that I think was pulled into the to the table of contents here because I had it in line as a note that we had under demographics and age, income, there are other key demographics that could be included and have been included in previous years, but that data I found challenging to get to. And so I was just highlighting it in the sense that if we feel strongly that it should be included, then coming up with a way to get at that data is something that would be needed. But we may feel okay with what we have.
Gotcha. Sounds good.
Yeah, we
All
can.
right. So then I'm gonna kind of just come down to Kay's comments here. Um, Okay, so Christine asked to automate the list of tables, so that's just once it's all done. And so I guess that could be done by us too, I assume. But Kay said that she could happily do that, which is great.
Yeah, happy to take care of that. I just wanted to be cognizant of the fact that we're going back and forth with drafts. I didn't want to like format something and then have, as you guys are doing edits, have it mess up in the system. So happy to do that when we're feeling like sections aren't, changing too much anymore.
Yeah. So I know I don't want to jump ahead too much, but um for you guys, what would be the best workflow then? If so we put a bunch of work into it. In my mind, we're gonna get comments, or we're going through these comments now. You pointed out some sections that we can work on, and there are sections that still aren't done. And then do we kick that back to you guys, or like as we get stuff done, should we send it to you, or what do you think would work best?
Yeah, I guess kind of a question to that question. How are you all working on this right now? Do you have it in kind of like a shared space where you can all access it and your changes are reflected immediately to one another?
Well, first we split it all up. We just got assigned sections. We volunteered to write sections. And then we sent Word documents that we wrote to Sadie, and they were all kept separate. We put them into a PDF format so people can review them and comment, but not necessarily go in and edit other people's work. And then people took those comments, went back, rewrote those sections, and then sent them back to Sadie, and that's when she really compiled it into one working document. But now we have a document that where we can go in, and it's more like a shared document that now we can all work on together.
Okay. Yeah, I would say, if you have the ability to share that document with me, I'll like review it every now and then to see if there's questions to any of my comments. Happy to do that. Or, if you guys kind of want to all look through the comments and feel like you reach a point where you've answered, questions that I've left and kind of developed areas that I've made suggestions and are ready for me to review, I'm happy to do it that way too. It's whatever works for you guys.
I mean, that works for me. Everybody else agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what we would love is for you to actually even just say, if you can even write some of like, if you're like, you're missing this, but you know roughly what it needs to say, like feel free to write it and then we can refine it. I feel like I don't know which direction we're going in and what the direction was, but um, we also want to glean the insights that you have from doing other plans and from knowing what the state is looking for, like if there are gaps, and also just to make it flow at the very end from beginning to end. Um, would love some support on that too.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, I'm happy to spend some time doing that. I think for this first round, I've kind of dropped suggestions for spaces where, I think the narrative could be developed a little bit more and kind of like dropped in areas where I know that other communities have spoken to kind of particulars. So I think kind of if you consider this my first round of comments, if you want to go through those, and then once you feel like you've kind of addressed all of them, I can certainly like look at that point. And if there's any gaps I noticed, I can type in kind of some holder language, or if I know the information off the cuff, I can certainly like add some things in there too. If I do end up doing that, likely what I'll do is just track my changes in your document so you can see like what specifically I'm adding in so you can like go through and either accept or reject those changes.
Yes, yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. I think yeah, I just don't want everybody to just go clicking through and accept everything until everybody has a chance to review it. But typically, honestly, I think if you write when you're making comments, it's on our sections. We're the ones that are going to go and review and accept them most likely, right? So yeah, we'll just have to be careful when we accept them, I guess. But I think that's I think it's helpful. Hopefully it's and it's hopefully it's not too much. I feel like we're getting there, right? So hopefully there's not too
Oh,
many
yeah.
comments. Okay. All right. So this is in the introduction. You had a comment here. I think it was pretty self-explanatory. I believe Sadie wrote this. So unless there's nothing else to say about it, I'm gonna move forward.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. So again, I think in these comments, like Sadie, you wrote this, so
Mhm.
you would take charge in updating this stuff.
Yes, can do.
Yeah. And if you see anything, okay, that I'm skimming through, just speak up because I don't know if you wanted to go over any of these comments other.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
oh, go ahead if you
Nope,
want to
sorry.
say
No,
something.
go ahead,
No,
Jim.
no, I mean, I appreciated this comment. I had written this section and, the what you're calling out there are the neighboring communities and so on, the intermunicipal efforts. There could certainly be more there. Um, I think I think some of this can just be reworked because there are mentions of the neighboring communities in one of the paragraphs right below here, below the map. And so, um, I think in general, I think the challenge I faced with this section is that the previous version was, 20 or so pages. And if you look at some other towns and how much, Newburyport's, they're 2000, well, they're one from 10 plus years ago. It's 35 pages, this section. The state, is saying it should be 2 to 3 pages long, the whole section. There's really a lot to cover there. So if anything, we kind of talked about that and the fact of go a little more minimal and, add on as comments come in. I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense with that first comment highlighted, as well as the next one about zoning bylaws, ordinances, and overlays. We have the map here, the next map. Sorry, I'm just kind of jumping ahead to the next comment.
I can skim up.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, not that comment, but anyway, are there particulars in town where the demand is higher?
Yeah, I think,
Yep,
Jim, I'm
go
looking
ahead.
along on like my version of this, and you're talking about for subsection C, growth and development patterns. I noted that in this section, you should also speak to zoning ordinances and overlays and how they either like
Yep.
protect or fail to protect open space areas. I commonly see missed in this section too. I feel like one of the easy things to do with an OSRP is kind of like get lost in the weeds of the technicalities of how your municipality functions and maybe
Right.
lose sight of the fact that you're speaking to open space. Um, but yeah, I think the approach of writing less and filling in with comments is a good approach. The OSRP handbook this round is like really cognizant of like trying to keep the push for municipalities short and making sure that these documents aren't, like an ordeal to get through. So, yeah, I think if you're, to as much extent as you feel that it's useful to talk about those things, I think like for the intermunicipal efforts and kind of larger regional efforts, that in subsection A there is a good spot to speak to that because there's really no other spots in the OSRP
Right.
that are talking about your regional context. So that's why that comment's there. And yeah, a lot of these comments are just kind of pointing you guys towards things that I see commonly missed that kind of come up towards the end of an OSRP review, just so you can catch them early on.
Yeah. Nope, that makes sense.
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. All right, I'm gonna skim ahead here then. But if I go by something, anybody, Jim or anybody, just let me know.
Yeah, so I mean, we could just stop briefly here at the zoning map. This is the one where there is the zoning map and it's not, there is data in here, but there's no reference to, what in the key of the zoning map there's very little reference to the different. If you go scroll down a little bit more to show the key there in the bottom right, just microscopic. But there could be a little more language, I think, that just ties it together because it's sort of like, well, why have then a visual and not really mention it at all? So, um,
I can't really blow it up, but yeah, gotcha.
it's real. Yeah, yeah, totally. And we may
Got
want to maybe enlarge that key a little bit somehow. So, because it is really hard to read even in regular um, size. But so anyway, I think there is a little bit that can be done here without turning it into sort of this technical overview of, going through each kind of zoning type and so on.
Yeah, I definitely don't think you need to kind of like walk through every type of zoning. I think just
Right.
kind of like broadly think about how they support kind of like
Yep.
either the preservation of open space or kind of like recreation in your area and just speak to those.
Yep. And then, beyond what's like the actual, they're statewide, with the OSRD and then the multifamily overlay district. Um, there's a little bit sprinkled in there already. So I think just adding a tad more might be a good idea. So thank you for that comment.
Definitely.
All right. So we have, this is the boat ramp. And so we looked at that map.
Right.
Got that covered. All right, section 4, soils, was environmental inventory analysis. I think Christina and I wrote a lot of that. So we covered this table already. Shade trees in heavily populated areas. I think Christina and I both worked on this a little bit. There really aren't. I mean, unless, I don't know, maybe the committee has another thought on this. I think I purposely didn't include it because we don't have heavily populated areas that need shade trees.
hmm Yeah, I was mostly curious. And again, this was kind of like the whole, if it says if applicable, it's really because I'm not like super informed about Newberry's efforts around like these specific things. I know you guys are kind of a more rural area and that your population's more spread out. So I wasn't sure if you had any kind of shade tree endeavors, but this one particularly, I was just curious because oftentimes we kind of like look at OSRPs from a planning standpoint, kind of like in tandem with things like hazard mitigation plans and municipal vulnerability plans, and high heat or extreme heat is something that is touched on often across these documents. So just curious, but if you feel like there's nothing applicable to Newberry, feel free to ignore the comment.
Yeah, no, that's helpful. I think they specifically call that out too in the guidance document. So,
Katie, are you aware of anything that the town has for public shade trees, living public shade trees, that we have any efforts that are going on that we need to reference in here?
No. But we do have, I know next to nothing about this, but we do have a tree fund that planning applicants submitting permits to the planning board, if they're cutting down a bunch of trees on their property, they are required to submit money to the town tree fund. So that could be something we could mention. But I would like to maybe look into it a little bit more before we put it in there. But
It seems like the only area that maybe could use shade trees is the island. And the only place I could think of that's really that the town has much to do with would be the parking areas. Maybe we could think about that.
yeah, I don't know any projects around planting trees in Newbury.
Yeah,
But yeah,
but I
Sean,
mean, the
that's
rest of
true.
the town has seems to have plenty of trees. But
Yeah, and Jim, it might be that as part of in the zoning section, that we actually do, this feels like a regulatory piece that maybe you could weave in a sentence that says, as in accordance with XYZ, whatever the regulation is. You could weave in that there's a tree fund with a little description.
Yep, that's a
So good.
good idea. Okay, moving forward. We just covered that. Yep. And yeah, long-eared bat is noted. I think the guidance document says to whatever, list the main primary species. So I might have missed one or two in there, but I can double check that. And that's thanks for the source. I'll go to that for sure.
Yeah, definitely. This is one too where it's like um the state or the handbook gives you kind of like the state database for endangered species, and it often kind of like doesn't really touch to federally protected or endangered or threatened species, but kind of as like best practice, it's nice to include those so that when you refer back to this document, you have like the full list of species that might, as you're implementing actions, might have like time of year restrictions or things, considerations like that as you move through the action plan. So this is one that like I almost always kind of like catch on an OSRP review. So really like just kind of like run that little the source that I provided will give you like a whole report for the entire town. You can just plop those in if they're missing.
Okay. Yeah. Well, thanks. That's
Yeah,
a
of
good
course.
tip. All right. Good. We'll need to require map number 7, climate. Yeah, so this is a climate change impact section. There's been a couple hands in on this. Require map number 7.
Yeah. Sadie did send me, I know you guys are working with the Essex County Greenbelt on some kind of like climate impact maps. Sadie sent me some of those, and it looks like those will cover this requirement, but just wanted to like I didn't see a map in there for climate change, so just wanted to make note of that.
Gotcha. Good. Okay. Let's see. So this is our committee. Calling whether Mike decided. Yeah. So I think that's just us. We got that covered. Oh, it's more between Christina and Mike. Okay. Okay, there's not a lot of comments. I guess we're doing really good, huh?
You guys are. You guys are
Okay.
doing a great job.
Thanks. All right. Mentioning of the town plans to accessing these lands easier than other narrow spanning sidewalks. Yep. And this could be informed in the action plan. Yeah, and I think we will be commenting on this in the action plan once we get to it. There's been a lot of talk about improving trails and access, so
Mhm.
I think see that.
Yeah, definitely. I was just kind of thinking here, if the town is already doing things like expanding sidewalks or improving sidewalks, or has any plans around expanding kind of like biking lanes, regardless of whether they're kind of separated or protected or just integrated into the road. You can always mention like ongoing projects here. Things like that do make like accessing public open space easier. So good place to touch on that if you can think of anything that's happening.
Great. Okay.
So,
Perfect.
in this section here, if you could stay on this one for a minute, this is something that I've been struggling with because I feel like we're writing this plan and we're giving existing conditions, but really we want to protect more of the land. I feel like Newberry is, a bit of a gem where it has some protected open spaces and it just has open spaces in general, but a lot of the open spaces are also at risk of being developed. And so in order to continue along a good path, in some ways, I feel like we're hurting ourselves by touting how much open space we have because they'll be like, well, we're not going to give you any grants because you've already got a ton of open space. And so I don't necessarily want to talk about all the great open spaces that are here. I want to talk more about the spaces that are at risk. And so I just wonder if you have any guidance for us on how we can balance that and like where that fine line is, and if we should maybe not be so um, generous in our descriptions of our open space areas because we're actually looking for ways and support to help protecting the ones that are not protected.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think that so much of the Commonwealth is kind of like at risk for development in terms of kind of open space in general, but also more specifically like climate resilience. As you know, our flooding's becoming worse, our temperatures are getting hotter in the summer, and like hot days are getting longer, and things like that. So I think, you know, especially um, the departments that do look at this kind of document generally see the value in having a lot of open space, and they won't be looking at those as kind of prime areas for development. They, you know, because it's like the EEA and the DEP and the DCR that are looking at these kinds of documents, these are folks that are aware that having like large swaths of land that are continuous, that provide kind of green corridors is a good thing. I think that if you're concerned about it just kind of at a local level, you can always kind of speak broadly to the types of resources and open space you have, kind of like on the first half of a section, and then follow that with like areas that you're concerned about protecting, and maybe frame it more as like these are the areas we'd really like to focus on in our action plan, and speak to those, um, their vulnerabilities, the need to protect them more in depth.
Yeah, I like that. We did have a conversation that like describe the reality, you know, which is kind of good, but then make sure you follow right up with the, you know, the issue. And so just this one section, park and open space equity, kind of jumped out at me because I feel like where we landed, you know, the lack of public transportation was like the issue to getting to that land. And so that's how we wove it into this paragraph. And anyway, I feel like we might want to like make the what we're concerned about conversation a little more emphasized throughout the whole document in all the sections, maybe just so that we really are keying into why we're writing this open space plan, which is to try and protect more open space or make it more accessible.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there are a lot of ways to kind of speak to that too in terms of other concerns that certainly the state has, like climate resilience. We know that there's a big push for things like the Mass Ready Act that are supporting climate resilience in terms of flooding, especially. So there is a lot of value to be had in land that is undeveloped. And I would definitely encourage you to play that up if you're concerned about that value being missed by anyone reading this.
Great. Yeah, those are good points. And I know myself when I was writing my section, I found it challenging because it's pretty easy to key in all the good stuff. So yeah, we do need to describe the full picture. All right. So then this is section 6. So I just want to skip ahead because that's a bigger, yeah, that's it. I think that's kind of actually that's almost another agenda item, but you did have a comment in here. Um, right, and so this will fill as we go. Uh, yep, if we call it a narrative, right. So that's kind of the plan. And so yeah, okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the document. The section 6, the analysis of needs still needs to be worked on. There's a bunch of some stuff in here, but I think that's kind of where we left off last meeting, actually, is how we were going to get that done. Um, so does the committee have any other questions or input on this and on the comments? Okay, I can stop sharing here for a second. Figure out how. Great. Right. And so, yeah, and so section six and the action plan is kind of the next agenda item. So, um, I mean, if I don't think you guys need to stay for the rest of the meeting, I think we got what we needed. We kind of have a plan to move forward. I think that we can go back and refine what we've done. And then we have some other sections that we need to complete. Um, is there a, should we, maybe a question to the committee is how would you like to approach and best utilize Merrimack Valley's resources? We can come up and we can work on our sections, and then when we feel like it's time to push them forward, if we need more support or help or more review from Merrimack Valley, then that would be the time. I mean, I feel like the maps are to me look really good. Like I think we're getting there. I think we're missing, well, we just need to get the one from Greenbelt that on the climate change stuff. So um but how does everybody else feel about this, and what do you think would be the next best approach?
I just wanted to say, I think I once we're done discussing the draft, I had asked Kay to discuss some ideas for approaching or continuing to work on the action plan, and talking about next steps there for us to work on. So I just wanted to note that that will be the next phase here. But yeah, any other final questions on the draft so far?
Good. I'm just trying. Am I still sharing? I can't tell.
Yes, you are.
I need to stop that. Stop sharing. How's that? Nice.
You got it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if you guys don't have any other questions on comments, like I said, I'm happy to do what works best for you guys. As you're working through my comments, if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to be accessible. And then I'm happy to re-review as things come along. Like Sadie said, I'm kind of working with her on the back end to help kind of like move a couple other things along. So we're talking through some options for that right now. But yeah, I'm really just happy to support you guys in whatever way works best for you. So just let me know and I'm around.
Okay. And then Sadie, I know that you've had some thoughts and discussions then again about the action plan and how the next steps to get that done. Did you want to go over that?
Sure. Yeah. So, in talking with Kay and with Martha Taylor, who had a pretty big hand in the last plan, I mean, we've discussed this long ago, but I know there's been some, you know, differing opinions on how we should approach the action plan. But we have our um, current, brain dump sort of style list of things that we have taken from, the survey, comments at the public meeting from last year. And I think also what we should do is just look at the last plan and just kind of, go down the list and check things off. Has this been completed? Has this not been completed? All right, let's take it over. And once we have that list of things that that are being brought over, we can still, refine it from that point on. And, reorganize it, prioritize it how we want for the new update. And Kay, I know made a great tool that we can use going forward, just to keep us organized. I think a brain dump is good, but at some point we do want to make it, a sort of hierarchy. And I think Martha had mentioned, a good way to go about completing that evaluation of the old plan would be maybe she offered to help since she, helped with the last plan. She proposed that Mike, since you were also on the committee when you were making the last plan, as you said, that you and Martha and either myself or maybe Bill could just go through, and it would take, an hour or two to just, figure out what needs to be brought over the, detailed, like on the ground level things that need to be brought over. Um, and then we can, organize it and then bring it to the committee and we can discuss. It might just be easier to do it that way than, going through each thing in detail on a meeting. I think that would last for a very long time. So, I think maybe subcommittee, bringing it to the whole committee, might be an easier approach. But yeah, let me know what you all think about that.
Sadie, do you want me to talk really, really briefly about kind of the module that I sent you that we have folks use to kind of guide action
Yeah.
plans?
Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, so I sent Sadie over we do this kind of like two-step, or rather, I guess, three-step module approach to developing an action plan, where the first step would be to review your prior action plan. Not necessarily to dictate the update plan, but rather just to note anything that's been completed to speak to in the narrative, and then to see if there were any action items that weren't completed that you still feel are a priority to your community. Literally just like highlighting those, noting the ones that have been completed. Typically we would have like you send that back to me. I would pre-populate that into a module that then kind of like divides those into your 5 broad goals. I saw in this draft that you guys are still working on developing those, but you can even just carry over, if you feel it's appropriate, the goals from the last OSRP. Those are just going to grab kind of like the broad categories of the actions that you might take, and then do. So I would pre-populate those into this module that we have, and I would give it back to you guys to brainstorm kind of more actions that fall into those broad objectives. Not getting too detailed, just so that your OSRP should be a guidance document rather than kind of like a step-by-step for the next 10 years. That would be pretty intense. But then I would have you guys kind of brainstorm areas on that, ask for a little more information about kind of like what municipal departments might be involved in those things. You all could work through that together. You send that back to me when you feel like you have like a good amount of kind of like broad goals on there. I would kind of pre-populate that into a next module that would help you prioritize which actions to actually include in the action plan, based on things like feasibility and timeline and crossover with other municipal goals or other departmental goals and things like that. And then I would like score those based on your results and give you kind of a ranked priority list to consider for your action plan. So that's kind of the steps that we would have you all do. If that sounds like a good approach to you all, happy to guide you through that process. And Sadie and I are kind of like reviewing this on the back end and trying to see if it's a good fit for you guys. So that's kind of a quick lowdown on what that would look like.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a really great approach, step by step. And it'll give us structure, something to follow that will help us kind of bang it out, get through it. So, I mean, I'd like to hear from the rest of the committee if people want to, if they think that's the right approach. I think it sounds like it makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think I do too. Ultimately arriving at using scoring to prioritize, I think would make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and I'm happy to go through the 2010 action plan and pull that apart a little bit.
I was just looking, there were over 100 or around 100 actions in there. So I think yeah.
We were ambitious.
You were. Yeah, no, it's very ambitious. It's great.
We to see how many we got done.
Yeah.
So yeah, Mike, I can work with you on that too. I've got a couple things come up in the short term, but we can work it out. Okay. All right.
Did you
So
want us to reach out to Martha Sadie about that effort or?
She's been in the office every day recently because since Kristen's out, she's been helping me with stuff. So, I can just, like send out an email to all of you to maybe find a time to work on that. I'm so glad that you're interested in that effort.
yeah, and we can work out logistics, Mike, on if it's easier to do Zoom or if we meet someplace
Yep.
after work or something like that. Or on the weekend. I don't know what Martha's schedule's like, but it can be available some weekends too.
Sounds good.
Okay. Well then that's a good approach. Um so so we do have these maps from Essex Greenbelt, and these are the prioritization maps, and we took a look at them a little bit, I think, before, and Sadie and I, when we were creating the agenda, we thought that it would be good to look at those again. It could help us develop our action plan. So rather than tacking it on to the end of this meeting, which would have been really long, we were thinking of doing another meeting, maybe a little bit more abbreviated one, a little bit shorter, just to meet with Essex Greenbelt and go over those maps. They're kind of waiting. They said they're ready to do it. And so rather than putting them off a month until the next meeting, we considered an interim meeting. I don't know how people feel about that. It could be another remote meeting. Actually, I think they work pretty well, especially when we're all poring over a map together. Um, how do people feel about that?
Works for me.
Yeah, me too.
Same.
Good. So I'm going to be the limiting factor, unfortunately, because I am going to be gone. I'm not going to tell you what I'm doing, but I'm going to be gone for 10 days, someplace warm, and um, and
What's the dates though? In 2 weeks, it's April 7th.
I'll be gone the 10th to yeah, I'll be gone the 10th to the 18th.
So what about the 7th?
That works
Yeah.
for me.
Do you
Um,
all not, oh, sorry,
I
not to
was gonna
interrupt
say,
me.
are we finished with our action plan slash OSRP draft discussion? I want to let these guys go if we are done with them.
I feel good. I feel good about it. Definitely.
Thank you.
All
Yeah.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for your
Thank
help.
you all. Yeah, if you have
Thank
any
you guys
questions
so
for
much.
us, we're around. All
Perfect.
right.
Yeah,
Right, good
I'll
night.
Take
definitely
care,
be in
everyone.
touch.
Nice to meet
Sounds
you.
good.
You too.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.
All right. Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Tuesday the 7th works fine for me in the evening, same time. Kind of.
Yeah.
The 7th
I
is
won't.
it's the Parker River Riverbank tree planting. I don't know if that matters any, but that's in the morning.
Oh, really? Oh, nice. I forgot about that. I have a question. If we're doing Zoom, can people do earlier in the evening, like 6, or is 7 still the easiest time for people?
6 is fine.
I can
6
do
is okay
6.
with me. Yep.
Yeah, I could probably do the 7th at 6 if I might be able to make it work. Yep.
Okay. Mike,
That
does
might be
that work for you? I know sometimes you're coming from somewhere.
Yeah, I'm just going to my work calendar here real quickly.
If it's not gonna work, then don't worry. It's just
No, it should. I just want to make sure there's not a conflicting thing on the 6th or on the 7th, rather. Sorry, Ed. No, I'm good. I can do whatever time on the 7th.
So, do we want to say 6 o'clock on Zoom? I do have to make sure that Greenbelt can make that.
Yeah.
So I will let you guys know if that'll work. But at the moment, April 7th at 6 works for everyone.
Yeah.
Abby's calendar right now is open at that time.
Oh, so she can't say no. Okay,
Well, I mean,
sounds good.
barring any personal life thing,
Yeah.
work-wise, she's good.
All right, cool. Glad we know. That's
I
funny.
don't have Becca's calendar on mine right now.
The
Well.
inside scoop. We're getting the inside scoop.
Right.
That's true. That's
All right.
funny.
Well, that
And
sounds
yeah,
good.
Bill
Yeah.
and Mike, I'll be in touch about an action plan subcommittee meeting time.
There's really 100 things on that action plan.
Yeah, I wouldn't be
Roughly, yeah.
surprised if that was the number.
So just 1 minute on each one, and there's an hour and a half. So
Fine.
hopefully it will go quick.
You like Riverwalk, Bill?
Yeah. Sounds perfect. Grab a picnic table and here we go. All right.
100 action items. My God.
Yeah.
I'm back up.
Yeah. I don't know what I signed myself up for.
I know. I was thinking, I was like, it's probably like a dozen, right?
Let's not pay attention to how many there are.
I
Doesn't have to be one go either. Can break it up.
All
Awesome.
right. Well, that'll be fun. So yeah, any other committee member updates? Yeah, the Riverways thing got essentially rained out. I know Sean, you signed up for it. Um, because I work for DMF, I knew that they were still gonna go and check it out. So Christine and I brought our waiters and went, and we actually got a bunch done that day. It wasn't as bad as I think forecasted, but when I talked to the organizers, they were like, I can't imagine having 50 people here right now because the river was high, running hard, and it was muddy. So I'm kind of glad they pushed it off for the bigger group, but it was really enjoyable, and the river's really pretty, and I couldn't believe it was right behind the office, the town offices there. I didn't realize that's how far back up it went. So I think it was a great activity. It was really cool. Met a lot of people from around the town, and people from outside Newbury showed up, so it was good. So I'd say, Sean, if you still plan on going, enjoy. It was a good activity.
And if you have waiters, there might be a different access point for that day, but the day that we went, you had to like walk underneath the bridge through the river, and so knee boots were kind of sketchy. Although now that the river's come down, I bet you can get through it with knee boots. But if you had waiters, even hip waiters, that would have been better.
Yeah.
Okay,
They can come up from
we'll see.
Larkin Street too, so you don't have to go on the bridge. But I don't know what that access is like because we didn't walk it. Right. Okay.
All right.
Hearing nothing else, no more updates. So the next meeting then would be what, the 21st? Is that right?
That's what it looks like.
Yeah. Does that work for everybody? Yeah. And I mean I say 7, but if I don't know. I guess we'll do
Yeah, so we can stick to 7 for regular meetings
okay.
if that works.
That is better for me for sure.
Okay.
Especially if we're gonna do in person. How do people want to do in person, or do you want to do and in person, or do you want to do another Zoom?
I can go either way.
Yeah, me too.
Me three.
What was the date?
21.
21. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. All right.
All right. We'll do an in person. And then yeah. And then if something comes up or if it's easier for people to switch it to Zoom, I know I'm flexible. So just shout out to Sadie. She could update the group.
Do have a board meeting that night. Now that I'm looking at that.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily always have to be at those, so I can keep you posted on that.
Yeah, I mean we could move it either push it a week or we can move it to a different day if you don't want to miss your board meeting.
Well, I mean, I'd say keep it for now.
Okay.
Excellent. All right, then I think that's a wrap. So good work. And seems like we've done everything on the agenda, so I will move to adjourn.
I'll second it.
Second, or Sean second, right?
Okay.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
All right, thanks everybody.